Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Today we're going to do the book, Concise representation of the book. Today's Hijri date is the 1st of Rabiul Awwal and the Gregorian date is the 6th of October. We're starting from page 41 today, inshallah. If you have the PDF or the book, it's page 41 and the title is Containers and Utensils.
Read, please.
It's permissible to use all types of containers and utensils, save for gold and silver ones, as it is specifically forbidden to use them for eating or drinking, while they may be used for other purposes. Hudayfa narrates to the Prophet ﷺ said, "Do not drink from gold or silver containers, and do not wear silk or brocade garments, as they are for them in this world and for you in the hereafter." Salama narrated drink from a silver container, only gargles into his stomach, the fire fell, recorded by Bukhari and Muslim. However, another narration in Muslim states that one who eats or drinks from a silver or gold container, Muslim noted that none of the narrators made any mention of eating or gold, except in the narration of Ibn Mus'haf. Sheikh Al-Albani said this additional information contradicts what has been narrated in a stronger form, although it's correct in its meaning based on what can be derived from the hadith. This is because eating and gold are greater and more serious issues than drinking and silver, as is obvious.
MashaAllah. 100 miles an hour. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een wa ala man tabi'a hudahum ila yawmiddin. After praising the Almighty Azza wa Jal, passing salutation upon his messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, go ahead with our book Al-Wajiz, and now we are onto the Aniya, the pot, containers, or also you could use utensils. Now the author had brought this chapter title straight after purification, because the water and the wudu and the ghusl can use utensils on pots and containers. That's why he brought this chapter here. Normally it is the case, if you look at any other fiqh book, you'll find that this chapter does not come whatsoever linked to purification. But because the water is to be carried in a pot, you might put that water into a silver or a gold or a copper or whatever. So that's why he brought this chapter here, in order to clarify what is the Islamic rule regarding using containers made of gold or silver for the purpose of wudu. So that means you are using the pot, which is made of gold and silver, okay, or made of copper, or made of clay, to use it to, for example, to bathe yourself with it, like we use now these days, the plastic and all of this. So he wanted to make sure that you understand that chapter, because you might be using such containers. So here he says it is permissible to use all types of containers except the container of gold and silver. For verily it is prohibited to eat or drink in them, irrespective, or in I would say, citing all the other metals or other things that can be used. So only the gold and silver he's specifying here. The scholars, by the way, had differed regarding this issue. The hadith which is being brought here, the Prophet ﷺ said, "La tashrabu fi aniyati al-dhahabi wal-fidda." Do not drink in the gold or the silver container. And that also, in another narration, the Prophet said, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا فِي صِحَافِهِمَا. Do not eat into their plates. And sihafia is a plural of safha or sahfa, and that is a container which will be enough to feed 5 people. We call it in Arabic as well sidr. Okay, so it is like dun al-qas'a. It is, we call it sahfa. Sahfatun is where 5 people can eat into it. So with the consensus of all scholars, we're not allowed to use gold or silver for eating or drinking, whether it's a pot, whether it's a container, whether it is utensils, whether it's forks, knives, any other thing that you use for food, you're not allowed to use gold and silver. And that is with the consensus of all scholars. No difference among the scholars. The difference here is in two things. Number one, to use them for other than the purpose of food and drink. And number two, to use the other the purpose of the food and drink. And there is another as well difference among the scholars. I'm going to come to it, inshallah. So what is the thing that we could learn from here? That is, are we allowed to use the gold and silver for food and drink? We said it's haram. So it tells us here that uses as well knives, forks, which are made in gold and silver. The reason behind this, the Prophet ﷺ said, it is for the people who are disbelievers in this dunya, and it is going to be for us on the hereafter. People who go to 5-star hotels, they have to be careful. When they go there, they might have knives and forks and utensils which are made of pure silver. I've seen that with my own eyes. When I was invited to Islam Channel in India, I was taken to Jazakumullah khair, they look after all the dua. I wouldn't say 5-star, it's 5-star plus hotel. And there I had the open buffet. So the people who are in charge, the waiters there, they gave me the forks and the knives. And straight away I could spot they are different from the normal forks and knives. They are pure silver. So I went to the waiter and I said, every time I come here, I'm here for about a week. Every time I'm here, please remove these for me and give me normal ones. He said, yes, I know, I should have already done that, because there are some other shuyukh as well who had said that to him, so he knows the scenario. So I said to him, every time I'm here, do not put these for me. And I have found that other dua, when they come as well, they're not really aware of this. I have to go to their table, by the way, Sheikh, this is by the way silver. You cannot use it. So it's haram to use knives, forks, spoons, okay, plates, pots, cups made of gold or silver. We're not allowed to use them. Now, are we allowed to use other than the gold and the silver for drinking? No problem. And that's the difference among the scholars. If it is made of platinum, made of, let's say, rubies, is no problem. It's only the gold and silver because of two things here. The gold and silver are for the kuffar in this dunya, not for us for the dunya, for the hereafter. Number two, that because they use as money, gold and silver is money. That's what it is. But now the rubies and the platinum, if they're going to be extravagant, I mean, like for example, you're going to buy them and they're going to be lots of money, it comes haram from the extravagance side. It doesn't come haram from the usage of that. So gold and silver, whether they're being given to you for free or you bought them, I cannot use them for food and drink. But if somebody, a prince or whatever, had given you a pot made of rubies, I could drink with it. A plate made of whatever platinum, I could eat in it. So eating in other than the gold and the silver, it's halal. But to buy them, then it becomes haram from the angle of extravagance. It costs a lot of money. Okay. What about utensils which are plated with silver or plated with gold? They're not pure gold. They're plated. You know, so they are the first layer is gold. They just dip it in gold and come out. It's not pure gold. It's called plated with gold. Now the scholars, they said they're different about regarding this issue. Correct opinion, we say, you see, the problem is what the people going to think. Halal to eat with them, but if a person saw that, he's not going to think it is, pure gold or it is not pure gold. He doesn't know that. As soon as he sees you, he thinks it's pure gold. It's halal to eat pure gold, unless you're going to hang a big sign in each fork of yours when you eat. By the way, it is plated, and there's no problem to eat with plated. I don't know how many people would do that, such a thing, to hang a big sign every time they're going to use a spoon or a knife. So, our Shaykh Al-Albani used to say, "At-taqwa qabla al-fatwa." Before you give fatwa, you have to have taqwa of Allah Azza wa Jalla. When I asked them about putting or using a golden watch, the golden watch, it's not pure gold, most of them. They're what? Plated with gold. So our Shaykh, he says, In terms of usage, it's not allowed. But before I say to you, this is taqwa before fatwa. So what do you mean by that, Sheikh? He said the Sheikh Rahmatullah alayhi was in the phone call. I would say a phone call with him. He said to me, Sheikh Rahmatullah alayhi, that means unless you hang a big sign from your watch saying this is plated, it's halal, it's not no problem, it's not pure, because you are carrying something looking like gold. Other people are going to look at you. They're not going to know the difference between if it's pure gold or it's not pure gold. Number one, they're not going to understand as well the difference whether it's halal to have plated and haram to have the pure one. They don't understand that. So remember what you're going to be presenting to the people. That's why we say to the people, got something gold, looking like gold, you should not be putting it, even though it is plated, which does not carry the same rule of the pure one. Fine. We're coming now to the it's going to be a bit of time, don't worry. So now we're coming to using the gold and silver pots for other than the food and the drink. That's another difference among the scholars. Somebody gave you the pot or plates and they give it to you as a present. You're not going to use them, you're going to use them as souvenirs. You're not going to eat with them. You're going to put them like for show. Okay? Is that allowed or not? Scholars have differed. Correct opinion regarding this issue is you're not allowed to use them, because most likely you're going to use them later on for food. And our Shaykh Ibn Baz rahimahullah, in contrast to Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen, he says that it is not allowed even to sell them. Shouldn't be selling the Muslims golden or silver spoons, utensils, or containers or pots. They should not be doing that. So we should not be using them at all. That as well tells us well for the purification. We're not allowed to use gold or silver pots for purification. I can't use it for purifying. But somebody, let's say for example, had used them and he had made wudu with them. Do you tell them, I'm going to ask you this question, do you tell them that their wudu is batil or their wudu is correct? So he made a wudu, think, with a pot which is made of pure gold. He made wudu with it. Is his wudu batil or is his wudu valid? Question him.
He's not eating or drinking, is he?
No, he's not eating or drinking with it, no. So, what does that do? Let's say he's drinking, eating and drinking. What does that make a difference?
As in the hadith.
No. Eating and drinking, we said it's haram. I'm talking about his wudu, nothing to do with the food.
As in the use of the plate for wudu.
Yeah, he had used it for wudu. Is his wudu valid or invalid? Anybody? Yalla, put your finger up.
I think it's invalid.
Huh? Invalid. Huh? So he thinks it's invalid. No, with the consensus of all scholars, it is valid. Haram to eat, haram to use, but it doesn't mean that if you have used it for wudu, your wudu is invalid. So we will say wudu is valid, but what? With a sin. Unless you didn't know. Because it's nothing to do with the wudu conditions here. Okay, the waters, so what is the condition of wudu? Condition of wudu, that is the water is pure. The water is pure. The water as well is reaching your body. It's going to reach your body. So there's no layer of something between your body. So the water is pure and it's reaching your body and making the wudu. Where is that is the invalidation? There's no invalidation. So basically, now what about if the water is being stolen? Do you understand me? The water is being stolen. You stole the water from somebody and you use it for wudu. Still, it's haram to use, but the wudu is what? Valid. Because it does not affect your wudu itself. It's affecting the haram. Why did you steal it? Why did you use the pot which is made of gold and silver to make wudu with it? So we say it is haram to use, but it is valid wudu. Just like we say for the hajj of the woman. The woman, she needs what? A mahram. Umrah, she needs what? Mahram. So if she had made a hajj without a mahram, her hajj is valid. 100%. Because it's not from the conditions of the hajj. She did not violate any condition, but she will be sinned. So you're going to go there to gain hasanat, but actually she came back and incurred a sin, and that is she had traveled without a mahram. Then he says that Muslim says that the Prophet ﷺ said, the one who drinks in a pot which is made of silver is like he dragging into his belly the hellfire. Bukhari and Muslim also he said, the one who eats with or drinks in the gold and the silver. And then he said Muslim, he had mentioned it only in Hadith ibn Musir. Al-Albani says this ziyada is not authentic, which is in Sahih Muslim, to say that the extra, which is the gold, even though that it is Sahihah in its meaning. But I would say there's a Hadith which has been mentioned already, 2067, which is on the top, which is Hadith that is not, which is, I've added the narration, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا فِي صِحَافِهِمَا, and do not eat in the gold and the silver. So the silver and the gold was mentioned in the Hadith Muslim, which makes it authentic to use the gold and silver, whether it's for drinking or whether it's for eating, it is haram. Now we come into the following topic, which is following thing regarding this, which is using the pots which are mended, I've got here a page, if anybody wants to take it, I've got it here on laptop as well, if you want to pass it through to you. But this one is actually summarizes the whole containers and pots used for drinking. I'm going to read it because it's got lots of information. Number one, it said it is permissible to use all types of containers, pots for purification purposes, except for gold and silver ones where purification would be valid in them, but haram to use, which we have explained just now. This includes even the ones, which is the pots used by the disbelievers, as long as they don't use them for cooking pig or cooking haram, wine, drinking alcohol, or any other forbidden acts. If it is so, then it is disliked to use them for purification purposes, that we have said in the hadith of Imran. So we have talked about that before. We said it's haram to use the pots which has been, have we used it, talked about 2 weeks ago, didn't I? Did I talk about eating in the pots and the containers and the, no? Maybe 2 weeks, no, because I'm mixing up with another class. Basically, if you have, this is very important as well. If you go into a hotel or you go into, let's say, an apartment somewhere and it is going to be using a kitchen of theirs, I would, if you're going to cook there, urge you to bring your own cooking pan. Don't use the cooking pan which is there because it's being used by what? The disbelievers. They don't know what they're being cooking into it. You might say, well, this is clean. It's been in the dishwasher and all of that. Yes, but the Prophet said, don't use them unless you don't find any. If you don't find any, then make sure you clean them properly. You see, the problem is the cooking pans, regardless how much you clean them, still maybe there are some particles somewhere in the pan, especially if it's not smooth and all of that. So you're frying your egg into a pan which has been having sausages or bacon and pork and all of that. So Prophet he told us not to use them out of disgust. Disgust is not out of haram or impurity. Remember that. It's not because they are impure. It could be clean. You dishwasher, all of that. But because out of disgust, you know, if you have, I'll tell you what, I'll give you an example so you understand what I'm saying. If I gave you a pan and I said to you, that there was a pig being cooked there in that pan, okay? And I washed it plenty of time. Some of you might use it, no problem, it's being washed. But if I told you that pan, you know, I fried some poo into it, you know, excrement, human excrement, I really fried it there, but I washed it 200 times. Would you eat in it? Would you eat in it? Even I washed it 300 times. Soon as you think of poo, you have poo in it, straight away you're going to be disgusted out of it. This is how you should treat the food of those people who are haram. Do you understand me? So pigs, just equivalent to the poo. Equivalent to the poo. So their alcohol and all of that, you treated that. So if you have this mentality, you will not eat into these plates or cooking pans. You would not use them out of disgust, as I said. Not because they could be clean. I said to clean it 200 times. But out of disgust, I want to. So the Prophet said, don't use them unless you don't find except for them. Then make sure, let him wash them properly, vigorously. Let him wash them what? Properly. That means, you know, with a hand wash and dishwasher and all of that, make sure you wash them properly. You know that the pots, if it's being cleaned, it's being licked by a dog. Remember what we said? A pot, container. You don't know whether maybe they put some containers for their dogs and they made a drink from there. You have to do what? Clean it 7 times. One of them is what? With dirt. And that's why we said clean them properly. Going back. So he says here, number 2, it is permissible to eat or drink in any container pot with the following conditions. Number 1, It should not be a container used by kuffar, disbelievers. This is because they might be cooking pigs, drinking alcohol in it. The only exception is when you have no alternative, where in such case, make sure to wash it before use. Scholars have different in opinion about whether these containers are pure or impure. Correct opinion is that they are pure, and the prohibition of use is merely out of disgust. Hadith Abu Tha'laba and Muslim ibn Mishkam. Type. Second point, it should not be made of pure gold and silver. Should not be made of pure gold or silver. Reasons behind forbidding such containers are: number one, showing off; number two, imitating the kuffar or imitating the inmates; number three, of the inmates of paradise. We should not be the inmates of paradise. We're gonna be eating. يُطَافُ عَلَيْهِمْ بِصِحَافٍ مِنْ ذَهَبٍ وَأَكْوَابٍ. Allah is gonna give us what? Sihab, which is plates made of pots made of what? Gold and silver. That's for Jannah. طيب. Also, containers made of more expensive material are permissible, but if it involves extravagance, then it will be impermissible. Remember we said the pot made of rubies, permissible to eat, but if you want to buy them and going to entail a lot of money, it should not be extravagant, so it comes in extravagance. But somebody gave it to you, no problem to drink in them. This rule is also applied to cutlery. If these containers are just plated with gold or silver, that means they're not 100% pure, then it is disliked to use them for eating or drinking, as extravagance is still involved, as we have said. Fatwa qabla al-taqwa. Useful points in containers used for eating and drinking and purification. Number one, gold and silver containers and utensils should not be sold nor to be used for any purpose. Number two, containers made of copper are permissible for you to use for eating, drinking, and purification purposes. Hadith of Ibn Zayd. Number three, it is not permissible to eat or drink from a container pot or anything that has a hairline crack along the whole container. So you got a cup, it's got a hairline crack. You know how hairline crack? The crack goes all the way. Okay, so if that goes all the way, throw it in the bin. You know, we found out, subhanAllah, that the germs, where did they go? In that hairline. So it says that's why Prophet ﷺ had prohibited us to drink in a pot or a plate got a hairline that goes all the way. And if it is a notch, then don't eat or drink from the side where the notch is. So you got a cup and it's got a broken lip here. Okay, don't use that lip, because again, subhanAllah, the germs goes to the unsmooth ones. They leave the smooth one, and that smooth one, because if you clean it, it's not going to be cleaned properly 100%. So keep away from that and drink from it. Okay. Number four, it is permissible to use mended containers pot for all purposes. So I want to mend it. So there's a notch. I want to mend it now. The crack is filled with a certain substance. This had the scholars' consensus, which is Hadith of Anas. But the mending has to fulfill the following four conditions. Number one, it has to be from silver. So if you want to mend the notch, you mend it with silver. So it's not gold, it has to be silver. Number two, it's little notch. It's not a big one. It's not only half of the plate or half of the cup, just a small one. So you have to fill it up with silver to mend it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Number three, it has to be for the purpose of need. What I'm saying is because some people, they might break it and make it for the purpose of decoration. You know, their trousers now these days, they put a hole into it. Okay, why? For decoration. They make holes in the trousers for decoration. But some people as well, they maybe make notches in the into the glass to make it what? Looking nicer. So it's got like patches here, the cup. No, it's for the purpose of need. And so it's not for decoration, and it should be a notch, not a hairline. So it's a small notch, it's not a hairline. It has to be for the purpose of need, and it has to be filled up with gold, with silver or gold, and to be small. It's not really a big one. All these conditions has to be there. Right. As for the purification purposes, you don't have to worry whether the pot is having hair crack or it has a notch. You could use it for purposes of cleaning, but not for the eating or the drinking. Recommended to cover the container. If you have a container or a pot or a cup, always cover it if you want to drink from it with something like a a piece of paper or a glass on top of it or a plate, or even, I would say, a pen of yours. Just put the pen on top of that cup to make sure that there will be nothing goes into it from the shayateen or for whatever it is. So that one, you put on top of it, فَلْيَعْرِضْ عَلَيْهِ عُودًا, as the Prophet he said. If it is inside the fridge, you don't have to worry, because the fridge basically is a big, seal. It's a lock. It's a whole lid, big lid. Once you close the door of the fridge, that is like representing, even if you left the cups or you left the containers, some of the food is left there, open is no problem because you're closing the fridge. By this, alhamdulillah, we have covered everything to do with the containers. We're going to go straight away now to the purification for the salah, which is the wudu. So go ahead, jazakallah khair.
Purification for the prayer. Ibn Umar narrates that he heard Prophet ﷺ said, the prayer is not accepted without purification. There are two forms of such purification: purification by using water and purification by using soil. As for the purification with water, it is either ablution, wudu, or bathing.
Right. Now, we're going to be talking about conditions for this wudu to be valid, which is not in the book. So the purification, it has to be there for your prayer to be accepted. And he says purification either with the actual purification or the dry ablution. What is the ablution? Which is tayammum, and each one will be discussed in details in due course. Not today, it will be in about 4 weeks. So let's just go ahead now. What are the conditions for a wudu to be accepted? Number one, that wudu is to be performed by a Muslim. So if a kafir made a wudu, he's not going to be accepted because he's a disbeliever. Number two is the person who is performing the wudu is to be having common sense. It means he's sane. If he's insane, that wudu will be invalid. Number three, he has to be a distinguishing child, meaning if he is too little to understand, 2 years old, 3 years old, that wudu will be invalid. It has to be a child, 4 years old, 5 years old. He knows what he's doing, and he knows that when the wudu will be invalid, when he passes wind or urinates. Number four, the water has to reach the body. So if there is paint, which is oil-based paint, or there is nail varnish, the sort of the nail varnish, that would be like a layer between your water and your body. So the water will not reach the body, so the wudu will be invalid. Number five, the water has to be pure. So if you have made a wudu with impure water, or with water which has the element of purity, but it hasn't got the element of purification. Like for example, if you had made wudu with rose water is pure, but it will be invalid. If you remember when we said that, rose water is rose water. It's more rose into it than the water itself. So it's pure, but it hasn't got the element of purification. It has to be water that has the two things, elements, purification and the ability to purify. Number six, the woman is to be not on her menses. She's on her menses, her wudu is invalid. Number seven, the man and the women, they're not in their state of janaba. So if you're in a state of janaba, that wudu will not suffice you for making the ibadah. Do you understand that? So if you're on sexual defilement, janaba, as a man or a female, then your wudu will not be valid. So those are the 7 conditions. I'm going to repeat them again. Muslim. Number 2, sane. Number 3, distinguishing. Number 4, that is the water reaching the body. Number 5 is the water is to be pure. Number 6, women, she's not on her menses. And number 7, male and female, they're not on their janaba, their sexual defilement. Now we come into the description of the wudu. We will just read this hadith and we'll stop by the hadith.
Ablution, its characteristics. Oman, the ex-slave of Uthman, states that Uthman called for a pitcher of water.
Uthman ibn Affan is the third Khalifa. He called for water. Naam.
He called for a pitcher of water and he made ablution.
So he made wudu now and everybody's watching. Go on.
He washed his hands 3 times. Then he rinsed his mouth.
Here he washed his 3 hands. It's not correct. He washed his palms. Because the hands, it means all of that, isn't it? So he washed what? His palms 3 times. Because your hands, this is a hand, isn't it? That's a hand. Is that English? Hand? Just like this hand. So what do you call this? Hands? All of that? No. We call it in Arabic, this is a hand, all of it. No? Okay. So it is making sure that it is the palms. Because later on as well, he will wash his arm, which is what? Part of the hand. So if the hand is mean this, no problem for me. Further.
Then he rinsed his mouth and inserted water.
So he would rinse his mouth and he what?
Inserted water into his nose and breathed it out.
So he will put his water in his nostrils, so he'll breathe it out, yes?
Then he washed his face 3 times.
Then he washes his feet 3 times.
Then he washed his right arm until the elbows 3 times.
Okay, up to the elbows, his arm all the way to the elbows. Does that include his hands? That's another issue. Does he when he wash, does he wash the hands with this? Or washes from here to there? You understand that? We're going to come to that as well. Father.
Then he washed his left arm until his elbows 3 times. Then he wiped his head. Then he washed his right foot until the ankles 3 times. Then he did similarly with the left foot. He then said, I saw the Messenger of Allah
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam
make ablution like this, ablution of mine. The Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then said, whoever makes ablution like this, ablution of mine, and then stands and prays 2 units of prayer with no other thoughts coming to his mind, then his previous sins will be forgiven. Ibn Shihab,
Az-Zuhri, yes, he said.
Our scholars would say that it's
This wudu.
that is the most complete form of ablution one can make through the prayer.
Right. So this is one of the wudu that is being, I would say, demonstrated here by Uthman radiallahu anhu warḍah. And we'll find other companions, they would add things which is not in the wudu. Like for example here, the tahleel al-lihya, putting water into your beard. That's going to be added as well. And also other companions would add, where did the Prophet put the water? Was it on his arm? Was it on the hand? Or was it on the elbow when he had used as well to clean him? We're going to see as well in another hadith, takhleel, which is to put the little finger between your toes of your feet. Okay, so all of that adds to the, but this is, by the way, the general description of the wudu. If you take this wudu, is 100%. But if you want to do the sunnah, then you have to stick with this class, inshallah, so you can really talk about the most tiny details of the wudu. So you understand there are things which are people, they don't know, which is regarding the beard. They never made the takhleel al-lihya. Where the Prophet said, Amarani Rabbi, Allah commanded me to make takhleel of the lihya. Right. So let's just now go into the sections of wudu. First of all, conditions for its now.
Conditions for the correctness of the ablution.
No.
Number 1, the intention.
So he's talking now not before you commence the wudu, that is the wudu itself. What I mentioned before is before you start the wudu. You have to be a Muslim, you have to be sane, you have to have the waters clean, and you have to have the water reaching your body, and you have to have as well, the person is to be distinguishing child, and you have to have no janaba, and the female just to be no in her menses. This is before you start, but this is now the wudu itself. You have to fulfill the following. Number 1, intention. Go ahead.
The Prophet ﷺ says, verily all actions are based on intention. It is not sanctioned to actually state the intention, as such has not been confirmed by the Prophet ﷺ.
So here the intention is in every act of ibadah is a condition. Some of the scholars, they said maybe it's a pillar. So they differ whether it's a condition or a pillar, but it's a condition. It's outside the part. So you have to have the intention of making wudu. Okay? Now, if he had made an intention of wudu to a voluntary prayer, he wanted to make a wudu for the voluntary prayer. Okay, so he had actually invalidated his wudu. He went to the toilet and he made wudu with the intention to make 2 sunnah, nothing else. Okay, and he actually forgotten that he did not wudu make. He has actually did not. So he. I'm sorry about that. Subhanallah. What I mean by this is that the person, if his intention to make wudu for a certain thing, and yet he actually did not realize that he was not on wudu for another thing, then there's a question. And I'll give you a very practical example regarding this issue. So this person in the day of Jumu'ah, he is making now ghusl for the Jumu'ah. And he went to the Jumu'ah, but he did not realize he was on a sexual defilement, janaba. Does his ghusl for his Jumu'ah suffice him for his janaba? You understand that? So he went to Jumu'ah and he made a ghusl for the Jumu'ah. Did not remember that he was what? On janaba. So he made his ghusl thinking that he is okay, but he's making it just an extra ghusl for the Jumu'ah. And he made his Jumu'ah. Then he realized actually he was on sexual defilement, on janaba. Does that ghusl of his will work for the ghusl of Jumu'ah, work to lift off the janaba? The scholar, they said, yes. And as long as it is that the ghusl is for something wajib, and the ghusl that you've forgotten that you are in sexual defilement. Do you understand that? So if you have made a ghusl for something which is not wajib, you made a ghusl because you want to make a ghusl, then it will not be sufficient to remove the janaba. You have to make the whole Jumu'ah again. You have to make dhuhr instead of Jumu'ah. Same thing here, when we made, for example, I made a wudu for something which is voluntary, but I did not remember, actually I was, let's say for example, I am in wudu, okay, I'm in wudu, and I believe I'm in wudu. Then I wanted to make another wudu for a voluntary prayer. Do you understand me? I'm with a voluntary prayer. Prophet ﷺ said, every time you want to pray, you could make another wudu, thinking that you are on what? On wudu. So you made that for that voluntary prayer or for an obligatory prayer, but actually your wudu is, yet you think it is for, for that, but actually you were on no wudu before. You went to the toilet, but you've forgotten. So you're making this wudu as an extra for reward. Does that wudu suffice for that? Do you get my point or not? Again, I'll tell you. A person came to this Isha prayer, okay? He thinks he's in wudu, but he knows that there will be more reward for him if he makes wudu for a new prayer, okay? So he made a wudu, which we call it sunnah wudu. It's an extra wudu, okay? Then after Isha prayer, he said, oh my God, actually I was not on wudu. Okay, so my wudu was actually supposed to be not for extra reward, it's supposed to be because I was not on wudu. I was not on wudu anyway. So does that wudu suffice for my Isha prayer, or my Isha prayer is invalid? We say the following: if you are doing it for the sake of a prayer, okay, and you've forgotten, no problem. But listen to me, if you did not do it for the sake of prayer, let's say for example, you are making wudu for no reason. That wudu for no reason, and then you remembered you were not on wudu, will not be sufficing. It has to be something which is valid, like making a prayer. Does that everybody understand that now? It's a bit of delicate information, but it does happen with a person. So if you did not remember that you are in wudu, and you made a wudu for another reason, but that reason is valid, no problem. But if the reason is not valid, you made wudu because it's smelly. No, that is not valid. It's not going to suffice for making up for your invalid wudu because you had no wudu before. Those are very delicate points. It might pass by the person, and he might be asking about them. We'll stop here, inshallah, and we'll be second condition. We'll discuss it next time. So we'll leave that second condition, which is at-tasmiyah. Or shall we do it? Yeah, just finish it. Finish it up. Second condition, because it needs a bit of explanation as well. Number two, Tafadhal.
Number two, mentioning the name of Allah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says there is no prayer for the one who does not have ablution, and there is no ablution for one.
Can you speak it louder? I can't hear you.
The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says there is no prayer for the one who does not have ablution, and there is no ablution for one who does not mention the name of Allah.
Right. At-tasmiyah, scholars are different as well. Is it a condition or is it one of those? You could say compulsory. The correct opinion, it is not a condition. If it was a condition, I'll tell you what, maybe so many people will have their wudu invalid. So many people forget to make the Bismillah. So if it's a condition, okay, then if you forget that condition, then your prayer is invalid. It's like you forgot to make a wudu. I forgot to make a wudu and I prayed. Your prayer is valid? It's not invalid. So the tasmiyah, saying Bismillah, just Bismillah, not Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, is basically, Bismillah is compulsory, but it's not more than a compulsory. It's wajib, that means you should say it, but if you forgot it, no problem. If you forgot it, there's no problem. Otherwise, as I said, we will invalidate lots of people's wudu. Third condition.
Number three, to perform the acts one after the other without a lengthy break between the different acts.
Can you just finish, please? You're
going
really down, you're getting sleepy or something. Go on.
Rasulullah saw a man very well. There was a spot about the size of a coin on his foot that he had not washed. So the Prophet ﷺ ordered him to repeat his ablution of prayer.
Yeah, you need to put your effort into the reading. So make it really interesting, inshallah. Right. Khalid ibn Ma'dan, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, so a man, he was praying while he had a size of a coin, okay, a dirham, onto his foot. You could see that means the foot is being washed, but that area is dry where there was no water. Prophet ﷺ, he told him to go and repeat the whole of the wudu and also the salah. So he did not tell him to go and just wash the foot and that would be sufficing. No. You see, what is now the criterion by which you could distinguish that I need to wash the foot only or make a whole wudu? Is that there's a dry here. So if you have, for example, washed yourself and you made wudu and you washed your foot, then you forgot maybe there's a spot there, straight away, no problem. But if you left it now, that's where the close sequence here is a condition. If you left it to such an extent it became dry, you could see it, the whole water is dry, and that one is not being washed, then you have to make the whole wudu all over again. Because as I said, close sequence means that I need to wash all my limbs one after the other without any gap. So hands, mouth, nose, face, head, arms, foot. I cannot, for example, wash my one arm and then I answer a phone call. How are you, my friend? Are you all right? No problem. Alhamdulillah. They put the phone on and then I continue. No, I have to what? Start from the beginning. So because you've broken the close sequence, unless you broke the close sequence for a valid reason. What is the valid reason? You were, for example, using the basin upstairs in the toilet. You're washing your hand, your arm, second, you want to go now to your, for example, head and face, or to go to your head and the feet, water stopped somehow. So you went downstairs to the other basin, water is not there. So this time I was passing. You went to the tap outside in the field, you know, where the garden is, and there's water there. So use it, no problem. You don't have to start from the beginning because there is a legitimate reason why you haven't maintained the close sequence. You broke the close sequence for a legitimate reason. So if it's a legitimate reason, no problem. Otherwise, you have basically broken one of the conditions which will invalidate the wudu. Fine. Now, after that, we're going to be next week, inshallah, 2 weeks time. What is that? What does it say? Following chapter?
The obligatory components of the ablution.
So the obligatory. So we're going to talk about limb by limb. What are the obligatory limbs to be washed? Until that time, inshallah, we'll leave you with time for questions, inshallah. If you have questions, please go ahead. Jazakumullahu khairan. We have, mashallah, plenty on Zoom here. We have more Zoom than the people here. Now,
the question of the ghusl on the Friday. Do you have to do 2 ghusls?
Okay, so the question of the ghusl on Friday. Do I have to do 2 ghusl or 1 ghusl? Okay, the most important ghusl that you need to make sure that you make if you are in sexual defilement, you have to have a ghusl, otherwise your Jum'ah is invalid. But I have, mashallah, no sexual defilement, no janaba. Do I need to make ghusl for the Jum'ah? Scholars have differed. The correct opinion, the hadith of the Prophet ghusl yawm al-jum'ati wajibun ala kulli muhtarim. The wash of the Jum'ah is compulsory upon each person who is an adult. This is for the person who comes to the masjid, for the sisters who are praying at home, or a brother who does not pray at home, the masjid because he's ill, or because he's isolating himself for COVID, or because he's a traveler, there is no Jum'ah onto him, there is no ghusl compulsory upon him. It's only one who comes to the masjid is compulsory upon him. And as I said, it's a difference among the scholars, but this is the correct opinion. Okay, this is the correct opinion. And the hadith of Umar al-Khattab with Uthman al-Affan actually supports the argument of those who say it's compulsory, not the other way around. The argument happened that Uthman al-Affan, he came to the masjid late. And Umar al-Khattab, he stopped his khutbah. Why are you coming late? He said, I didn't have time and all of this, and then I came with wudu. He said, even with a wudu you came? Instead of having ghusl. So that's actually supports, not the ones who say it's no problem for the ghusl, but supports the one who says that the Umar Khattabi blamed him for not having a ghusl. So it's compulsory. And to say that Abdullah ibn Abbas he said an argumentation regarding that because the people at that time, they were coming from different areas. So there was sweat and, smelly and all of that. That's why the ghusl is. All of that is argumentation. It cannot be brought before the hadith of the Prophet. There's no explanation to the hadith. Khalas, it's compulsory. But if you didn't have access to have ghusl because of your work, so I would say to you, have ghusl before you go to work. The more closer to the Jumu'ah you're having ghusl, the better it is. So if you have time after just gap between work and your Jumu'ah, go to the home and make ghusl. If you didn't have time, then make ghusl even in the morning after Fajr. Make the ghusl for the Jumu'ah because you're going to have no time to have ghusl from work, especially in this country, from work to Jumu'ah. But make it on your mind, it is compulsory, and I need to do it as much as I can within my capability. Allah will not exert upon you more than what you are capable of. So if you are capable of this, do it in the morning. You don't have to do it in the. But let's say you did not do it. Your Jumu'ah is valid, ya Ikhwani. Your Jumu'ah is what? It's valid. But if you left it out of laziness, out of you not really caring, this is what the debate is. The scholars who say it's compulsory, you are sinned. The one who says you're not compulsory, you're not sinned. Okay, the one who says compulsory, it's your sin. Why did you neglect that ghusl? Now, Jazakallah khair. And this is a question, actually, it's before the chapter of Jumu'ah we're going to be talking about. What's the question?
You need to do the two ghusls.
Oh, yes. So I said, yes. Jazakallah khair. Adding to all of what I've said, so if I have sexual defilement and I have the day of Jumu'ah, I make two ghusl. Now, what is the argument with this? Because one ghusl of wajib does not suffice for another ghusl of wajib. It does not. So my sexual defilement does not suffice for the Jumu'ah, nor the Jumu'ah suffice for that. Unless I've forgotten that I was in Janabah, then I will no problem. So how do I do it? Do I need, for example, to have a ghusl, then dry myself, and then go back to the shower and have another ghusl for the Jumu'ah? No. It's in the same ghusl. Two ghusls in the same place. So you have your ghusl first of all. If you want to have it full sunnah, which is the wudu, okay, the cleaning of the private parts and making the wudu. Then after that, putting the water into your body, divided into two halves, on the right and the left, unless you've got to shower all of it. Then after that, you finish, you start another one, making wudu. That's a sunnah. And then that's for the Jumu'ah. You start with the janaba and then the Jumu'ah. It's the same ghusl. I don't have to step out, dry myself, and come in. And as I said, this is only for the people who attend the masjid for the Jumu'ah. If you are not compulsory upon you to come to the masjid for any reason which is legitimate, you don't have to make the ghusl for the Jumu'ah. That answers your question, no? Jazakallah khair. Right. Remind us, inshallah, when we come to the chapter of the Jumu'ah, that we've answered this question. Any other question? Tadal, brothers, tadal. Oh, كيف حالك يا أستاذ علي? Ali Akhtar is here.
When you are about to make ghusl, make wudu first, this is the janaba one. You should be clothed.
No, you don't have to be clothed, with clothes on to make the wudu when I have the ghusl of the janaba. Ghusl of the janaba is that I go to the ghusl area. If I'm having a bucket and I'm taking water out of it, so first of all, I will wash my hands outside the bucket, without dipping my hands in the bucket. And after that, I will wash my private part. And this is all of it in the ghusl, ya akhwani. So we are already taking now the ghusl chapter away. You're going to clean the private part. And remember to clean the private part with your left, and you water to put it with your right. Never touch private parts with your right hand side. Then after that, you start making the wudu. You make the wudu full, unless you are in a tub where there is no drainage, you leave your foot the last one. But if you have drainage, you understand drainage, running water, then you could make the full wudu, including the feet. Because if you have a tub where there's no drainage, and your feet is going to be staying in that water, which you're going to have bath, so make wudu except for your feet, leave them to the end. And then after you come out, then you clean your feet because your water is still there. You understand what I'm saying? Because in our countries, we wash ourselves and not in a tub like this with a drain. We have like a pot, big pot, isn't it? And we put the water on top of it, and the water is still there. So our water is still on our feet. We leave that to the last bit, and then we clean the foot. Then after that, we make sure that the water goes to the whole of the body, starting with your head, okay? And you could, if you are the bucket, right hand side, the left hand side. After the wudu, right hand side, the left hand side. If you have a shower, it's all of it. You can't do like this and like this. It's really very hard to do that. But economize the usage of water, because I know the shower uses a lot of water. Okay, a lot of water. Some of the showers, mashallah, more air than the water. You know when you have a car wash, the car wash has got so much air. The water is not that much. It's only air. So that I would say good. But the thing is, a shower, subhanallah, I would say the shower that the people using these days is enough for 5, 6 people at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wallahi, these days we have extravagance regarding the showers. And I remember one of the sheikhs was talking about the dush. Shower is called dush in Arabic slang. So this sheikh is saying we had a disaster since 2 things came in: dish and dush. The dish, which is outside, with the satellite, and the dush is the shower, which is what? Stopping into the usage of water. Remember the dish and the dush. Since we have the dish and the dush, we've had it. طيب. تفضل يا anybody. تفضل يا أستاذ إسحاق.
There are cups in the offices for tea and coffee. Is it okay to bring in those because they use
So they are what? They are cups, sorry?
The cups in the offices.
Yeah.
Which everybody uses.
No, cups in offices, that you're not going to use for alcohol, do they? They use for your teas, and alcohol is not allowed in the office, is it? So no problem. By the way, the kafir drinking water from a cup, it doesn't make it impure, ikhwan. It's only when he uses it for haram things. We're not like the Sikh. The Sikh, if they're religious, the Sikh, if he shakes his hand to your hand, in his religion, he has to wash his hand. Okay? If he's a Sikh proper, yeah. If he's religious, and I appreciate it. One of them, he said it to my friend. He said, I'm sorry, I shook your hand, I have to go and wash my hand. Because you're not Sikh. I appreciated his honesty. I appreciated that he's not hiding it. He wants to wash his hand. Yeah. You as a Muslim, you might wash your hand as well by shaking the hand of somebody whom you believe that he does not clean his hands when he goes to the toilet. Do you understand me? Hygiene-wise. True or not? It's true. So you find that some of the non-Muslims, they are hygiene, mashallah, very clean and all of that. But some of them, I see them in the toilet, they go to the urinals. They don't clean anything. Whether it's the private part or their hands, nothing. So, I would wash my hand if I touch the hands. I would wash it. Because it's touching something, an area there. It could be urine. Now, Allahu A'lam. But the cup's no problem. Fadal.
If you mentioned washing your hands 3 times, what if you go constant running tap water? Is it right to do it once? Do it properly?
Okay. Right. So we're going to come to the wudu now, action, which we're going to be discussing in the 2 weeks' time. Is that when I'm doing, for example, running water, do I need to do 1 coming up, 2 coming up? I think I'm going to be using water. I could do that once and twice and 3 times and close it, no problem. So washing once and twice and 3 times. But if you want to do it like this, then close the tap. And the best taps now these days, the battery ones or the electrical one, which is already instant. Put water, take out, stops. That will economize the water. Wallahi, if we have masajid these days, I would advise him. Do we have one? Yeah, the doctor? Battery ones? No. I advise the battery ones. It will basically run the half the cost of the water that we use. Half. Lots of water is being used. And brothers, mashallah, they put it on and he puts his jackets off, and while he's taking his jacket off, the water is running. And while he's taking his socks off, the water is running. Allah al-Musta'an. Allah al-Musta'an. Now, تفضل يا إسحاق. ونبقى إسحاق. تفضل يا إسحاق. يلا يا إسحاق. Can you just, Ahmed, please?
He's not responding, Sheikh, if you want to go to Faisal.
Okay, Faisal. Nobody's responding, yeah, Ahmed. Something wrong.
Sheikh, can you hear me? I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Nah.
Oh, Sheikh, just to clarify, if someone has to use silver or gold to repair a utensil, are you saying it's only silver, we cannot use gold for repairing purposes?
You can't use gold and you cannot use other than the silver. Just the silver. It looks like silver is anti sort of bacteria. There's no bacteria. I don't know why, but antibacteria. Now.
So not even copper or nickel?
No, just silver.
Jazakallah khair.
Abu Nasr Din.
Sheikh, at the end of a gathering, like when the Sheikh says, Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, does this suffice for everyone in the gathering, or does each
By the way, this
person have
has
to
nothing
say
to do
it?
with the wudu, ikhwan. We have to do with the wudu or the utensils. Okay, so the question
Oh, sorry.
is, but it doesn't matter. Go on again, but I'm just stick to the brother all the time. Stick to the subject, please. So what's the question? So it is, no, each one, he does it on his own. Okay, the kafarat al-majlis, each one for his himself. Ishaq. No, Ishaq is not there.
He's having trouble, Sheikh. He's messaged me, but he can't unmute for some reason.
It's okay. Inshallah. Subhanakallah bihamdik.
The sister.
Sister, go on. Tafadhal.
Sorry, Sheikh. The sister wants to know that she heard the adhan, so she made wudu, but her intention was just to be on wudu. She wants to know if it's valid or not. She didn't intend to pray or anything.
So she made wudu because of what? I don't understand the wudu.
She said the reason why she made wudu is because she heard the adhan and she wanted to be in a state of wudu, and that was it.
So she's making wudu for the what? For this next following prayer? If she's doing it for the next following prayer, yes. If she did not make it for the next following prayer, just made a wudu, this wudu, no problem. But if she wasn't on wudu before and she thinks that she's doing it as an extra, it will not suffice her. I hope that I made it, inshallah, explainable, clear for her. So if she was on wudu before, it's no problem. But if she wasn't on wudu before, and she thinks that she's making this as an extra because of the adhan, which is not a legitimate reason, it will not suffice her for that invalid wudu. Okay? Subhanakallah bihamdik.